So, as usual, I am just sitting here minding my own business, living my life as I need to, and keeping to myself. I'm not bothering anyone. I'm not doing anything wrong. I am doing whatever I need to do to get stuff done in my own life. And I honestly couldn't care less what anyone else is doing, really, as long as it doesn't affect me or my health or my safety or my ability to do what I need to do when I need to do it. When other people's tendency to engage in nasty, disruptive, aggressive behavior affects my health and safety, affects my ability to do what I need to do when I need to do it, and consequently also affects potentially other people's health and safety, then I have the right to defend myself, okay? I also have the right to call in judgment on the disruptive, aggressive behavior of people who probably should not be engaging in that type of behavior at all. It is now almost 12 p.m. and I've had to close my window completely shut, like literally seal it shut with the shade closed, because starting at around 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning, I was awoken out of a sound sleep. I've had a busy week and not much sleep, by a bunch of low-life scumbags screaming and shouting on the sidewalk directly across from my windows. This isn't a few minutes of people, having a chit-chat out on the street like normal people would. Sure, anybody has the right to talk and greet people out on the street. But when it goes on for 3.5 hours, then that is not simply chit-chatting for a little bit, saying hi, maybe laughing a little, maybe playing some music out on the street. That becomes a activist disruptor kind of situation, or disruptor activist kind of situation. It's pretty hot out right now, and I should have the right to have my window open. But again, because there's a bunch of psycho scum, rejected asswipe filth from the building across the street, 191, who can't keep to themselves, who are basically a bunch of registered sex offenders or career criminals who are in and out of the justice system. I would know. I've been to court with a few of them because they've threatened to kill me or have tried to assault me in the past. They're just a bunch of mentally disturbed lowlifes who can't stay in their lane. Then it affects everybody else's ability to live their lives as they need to. It wakes people up. It prevents them from being able to, open their windows, because then they have to listen to these nut jobs screaming and shouting for hours and getting deliberately disruptive just a few yards away. Again, I don't care if it goes on for, 15 or 20 minutes, maybe an hour, but when it goes on for 3.5 hours, then there's a problem, because these lowlifes have nothing else to do. They don't disperse. They're literally blocking the sidewalk or standing in the street. They're screaming and shouting. They're preventing other people from doing what they need to do. They're just a bunch of rejected lowlifes, right? They have nothing else to do than standing on the sidewalk, screaming and shouting for hours. So let's talk about evil. Okay, so I'm not saying that these particular people are evil, although they certainly behave in very aggressive and disruptive ways. Evil is basically the subversion of justice. It's the opposite of justice, right? And so when you have a group, an activist group, such as these BLM hate stalking lowlifes outside my window, that's exactly what they are. Confirmed by the Boston Police Department 5 years ago now, in August of 2019, when Officer DV told me that there is a race-based activist group in this building, basically taking over the building, and they don't want me to live here. He said they're doing whatever they can to make sure you don't live here. Those were his exact words. At the time, I had no idea what he was talking about. I just knew that there were constantly really aggressive groups of residents from this building standing in the doorways at like 11 p.m. when I would try to come home from the building from being out, at work. I was working full time, or coming back from seeing my friends or hanging out with family or whatever. These nut jobs would deliberately try to block my access to the door to this building. There's only one door to this building, and therefore they were, deliberately just preventing me from accessing my residence, which is illegal. So that's evil, right? When people do things that are illegal, that's evil. When the justice system that is supposed to be enforcing the laws refuses to enforce those laws, not just once or twice, but repeatedly, that is also evil, right? They are subverting justice. There's a case right now in court filed by the Greenville Group. That is the fourth case in 3 years that has been filed against me for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that I did wrong. That is evil. I did not break the law. I did not violate the lease. Certainly not the way these other tenants violate the lease by being disruptive, standing on the street corners, physically assaulting other tenants, throwing things at tenants, parking their cars in front of the entrance, preventing tenants from accessing the front door, right? That's all violations of the lease. Nobody does anything about that. But when the landlord claimed that I had violated the lease, they could not come up with any specific reason as to how I had violated the lease. They just couldn't come up with an actual lease violation. So then that case had to be dropped because it was legally invalid. That is evil. It is the opposite of law, order, and justice. So evil is basically anything that is the opposite of law, order, and justice, right? Law, order, and justice are there for a reason. They're there to protect people from low-life scumbags who can't stay in their lane and who do things that are harmful to others, including just standing on the street corner screaming and shouting for 3.5 hours. That's like half of a workday. Basically, these nut jobs are making it their job to stand on the street corners, scream and shout, blast music, disrupt the neighborhood, violate other people's peace, prevent other people from resting or from relaxing or listening to their own music or their own programs in their residences because they're being so loud out on the street. They're the ones who are, subverting the law. The law is there to protect people from that kind of disruptive behavior. When the justice system, or when the criminal justice system, for instance, police officers refuse to do anything about that, or judges in court refuse to follow the law, that is evil. Attorneys who also ignore the law in favor of prejudicial activist legal activity or actions are also evil. They are going against the justice system. They're going against the established laws of the land in favor of their own personal biases, prejudices, and interests. That is evil. That is the opposite of law, order, and justice. The laws of the land subvert anybody else's personal prejudices or desires or their, frivolous, fickle preferences. So when judges or attorneys put their own personal fickle preferences, prejudices, and desires above the law of the land, they are engaging in evil behavior. Evil is not something that you see only in horror movies or in crime dramas. It is something that happens around you every day. If you are intelligent, and most people these days unfortunately aren't, because critical thinking is no longer taught in schools, and it hasn't been for a while. I think it stopped when I was in, high school and college. That's when the critical thinking methodology seems to have been dropped from the scholastic curriculum. Then you have a society of robotic morons who literally just go by whatever they want and act like angry, temper tantrum-y 5-year-olds when they don't get their ways. You have a society of retards who can't follow the law, who don't even know what the laws are, and who, even if they did know what the laws were, would be too stupid and retarded to follow them. Thank God that I was born in the early 70s. I am now 51. And I was in school in the 80s and 90s when critical thinking and deductive reasoning were still part of the curriculum. Critical thinking and deductive reasoning and the ability to regularly apply those and engage in them in a constructive and effective way are what make people intelligent and functional. These days, nobody seems to be able to do that. There are attorneys who are maybe a few years younger than me, not that much, I'd say maybe 10 years younger than me, who are handling certain cases in which I am involved. And their discernment is questionable. They are putting their personal biases, fickle prejudices, and childish desires of how they want things to go or be above the law of the land. The same thing could be said for the judiciary, that is also biased and prejudicial in ways that are evil because they ignore the actual existing laws of the land. They ignore legal precedent in the form of prior legal cases and they just do whatever they want. They make whatever decision they want and completely ignore legal precedent and the laws of the land. That is evil. So when you have evil staring at you from every corner, and you're someone who has the discernment to be able to tell the difference between evil and good, and stupid people can't do that, but intelligent people who, again, are able to think critically and engage in constructive, accurate, deductive reasoning, are able to tell the difference between good and evil. And I mean good in terms of following the laws of the land, recognizing legal precedent, understanding what the laws are for and what they do, and being able to put aside your own personal prejudices, your little childish whims and desires in favor of following that law. Then you are able to discern the difference between good, following the law, correctly applying the law, and evil, ignoring the laws in favor of your own personal childish desires and prejudices. It's that simple, folks. So what gets me going every day is that I face evil every day. I face a lot of injustice. I see it all around me, not just in my situation, but being applied to other people's situations as well. Police who refuse to do their jobs or who turn the other way when faced with obvious criminal activity. A legal system that deliberately ignores existing established laws of the state and of the federal government in favor of their own personal childish prejudices, their narcissistic desires, their activist preferences, right? Like what I want is going to go above what the law says that I should do, then that's evil. And so, I fight it with Dunkin' Donuts. This is my secret weapon right here. As long as I have enough coffee to get me up in the morning and I can make it out of this dysfunctional, crazy environment. And I'm not talking about the personal space right now, although the city inspector has issued several violations against landlord for violations in this unit over the last few weeks. There's a cockroach infestation that has nothing to do with me. I mean, I've lived here for 13 years, and this is the first time I've ever had cockroaches in 13 years. So no, it's not because I have boxes in here. I've had boxes in here since 2013, 2011, actually, and there were never cockroaches in here. I lived here for years before I even saw like a spider. I was starting to think this place was radioactive because there were so few bugs in here for the first 10 years that I lived here that I was like, wow, how come there's no bugs in this building? This is just amazing. So it's not me. When you have an infestation of the kind that the inspector witnessed when he was in this building, including in the rear stairwells, in the common bathrooms, has nothing to do with one single tenant, right? So this space is actually fine for one person. Take away the leaking taps that are dysfunctional. I don't know why the taps are leaking. I have nothing to do with the leaking tap. The tap just leaks water all over the place, and management refuses to fix the tap. So I have to keep the underneath of my sink wide open with cloths under it because the tap is leaking everywhere. And management's been notified. They're just not doing anything. And then there's cockroaches that have nothing to do with me because, again, I've lived here for 13 years. There's never been a cockroach before a few months ago. That's evil, right? So aside from these issues, this space is fine. And so what gets me up in the morning and out the door of this space is this. And then I fight the criminal behavior of people who should be themselves enforcing criminal laws and statutes, because that is evil and I am not. I just observe it and then I try to do something about it. Thank you, Dunkin' Donuts. You are my lifesaver.